What's happening, budget builders, and welcome back to the channel. Here behind me you see this absolutely super awesome 1952 Willys pickup. This thing has been off the road since 1991, and in today's video we're going to bring this thing back to life. Now, obviously you can see it's kind of dusty and stuff, so it doesn't look like it's been outside, and that's because it had that huge military tarp on it. But I've actually already been ate up like 3 or 4 times, and that tarp's not going back on this thing. If you wonder why it looks like it does, it's because it has actually been covered up for the majority of its life here. About 6 months ago, we came and bought an old C30 for some wheels, and this thing was, we could see the silhouette of it under that cover, and so we asked him about it, and he actually bought it in 1991. You can see that's the last time it was registered, and he was going to do a chassis swap on this thing. Things got in the way, life got in the way, and here it's sat. And so we don't want to see this thing chassis swapped. We're going to bring this thing back to life. Check that cool little 4-banger out. Can't wait to find out if it'll run. This is just such a cool machine. There's wasp everywhere. And he just wasn't sure he was ever going to be able to do anything with it, so we told him if he ever wanted to sell it, give us a shout. And it took a good 6 months or so, but he got with us and told us to come save it. And so here it is. Man, that thing's cool. It's crazy. Even though these tires have no air in them, they have those big old tubes, so it kind of keeps them up afloat. Go ahead. So I guess, yeah. Yeah. Battery light. We're not charging. Let me watch the road here. So we're gonna keep trucking down this mountain and hope that we make it. With the Willys back at the shop, we can go ahead and start checking out everything under this hood. First thing we'll notice, there is no carburetor. Just what used to be. Oh, yep. I don't know what that was. Used to be a shirt long many times ago. Doesn't look like it's seen a ton of moisture. Definitely not good not having a carburetor on it though. Oh boy. Hey, I'm taking the nut loose. Oh, wow. Locked down solid. Oh, let's go ahead and pull those spark plugs, see if we can figure out why she's not turning over. Doesn't look terrible. Little bit like molasses, but hey, that's okay. Looks pretty good. Not too shabby. Not bad. No, not bad. Well, we might just have a little bit of surface rust on the rings, because so far, not bad at all. Well, we've let that Marvel Mistral soak in those cylinders for a couple weeks now, and quite honestly, it is supposed to snow this weekend. Let's see if we get this thing running so we can play with it a little bit. I gotta say, sitting out here for a few weeks after being covered in that tarp for as many years as it was, as soon as it started seeing the light of day, and I think probably because of just, I don't know, just how the tarp works, the moisture that it held down in there, as soon as it dried out, this paint is just peeling off. Look at the pretty metal that's under it though. We're gonna have to get this thing treated pretty quick though. We might as well be driving it into the shop. This one seemed really stuck, especially with that carburetor off for no telling how many years. So I don't have a ton of hope that just Marvel Mist Oil is gonna break it free. You've gotta be kidding me. This son of a gun was locked down solid. I'll give it to that stuff. That blows my flipping mind. This thing's gonna be a darn runner. You've got to be flipping kidding me. Good. The fuel pump is working. Smells like pure butolio, but my goodness. If you'd have told me that fuel pump right there was gonna pump fuel, I wouldn't have believed you. This thing's flexing on flat ground. That's how that's supposed to sit, right? The frame on this thing is absolutely pristine. Now moving back to the engine here, one thing we need to go ahead and take a look at is whether or not this is 6 or 12 volt. Because this is from 1952, this is right around, actually I think they use 6 volt all the way up until about 56 or so. If you take a look here, this is a 6 volt generator, 6 volt starter. Now originally this was a push style, so you have like a little lever that you kick down to engage. But if you see, it actually has a 6 volt Ford style electric solenoid there. I do believe this is a 6 volt coil. I have not verified, but realistically everything here looks to be 6 volt. We ordered a 6 volt battery. It'll be here in the next couple hours. So until then, this thing's gonna run, I think, right? Let's get that oil pulled out of here. That is molasses. Oh my goodness, it is thick. It's not sludgy. With the entire 1 quart of oil drained out of it, we can tackle the oil filter. And what's bad is I put at least a half a quart of Marvel Mist Oil in this thing. Maybe someone was changing the oil? I'm going to throw some Rizlon zinc additive. This is going to be kind of like a break-in, but it also works in oils and makes newer oils work in older vehicles. Our new oil doesn't have near the zinc that this would have used, and so we got to supplement it with something like this. It's just coming straight out of the valve cover gasket. So the gasket's actually on the inside. Looked like it was that way for a long time. You see how oily, nasty the back of this is. So I think not only was it bad in the first place, but it shrunk up while it sat for that 30+ years. Well, we're all glooped up here and back on, and that's just temporarily until we get the new one in that we ordered online. Got our cap pulled off. You can see, looks actually really nice and clean in there. As well as our points and our condenser here. And that just really goes to show that industrial tractor type system you have going on there. Those old tractors can sit out in the field for years and look just like that. There are certain things they designed right on these, and that was one of them. Rolled over, you can see we have some gap there, right about a 20 thousandths gap, which is what this little F4 134A actually calls for. So I think we're okay there. I'm just going to take a little bit of sandpaper. This is just a 600 grit, and I'll crimp it down in there. You can see we can clean that crust off. No explosions. And our moment of truth. I've got this jumped out to the starter solenoid. Woo-hoo! Sounds like a brand new. Now I've got another jumper here, and that's putting 12 volts, 6 volts to our ignition coil, and let's see if we have any action going on down here. Ah! That fuel! I guess gas isn't flammable after so long, right? Just a little more clean in here with our sandpaper. So I put these absolutely beautiful wires back on this thing. Now, if for some reason we go to turn this over, it pops around on us. What we may have to do is go ahead, because there's nothing actually marked there. That's just what it's supposed to be. If it does act up on us, our number 1 cylinder will get at top dead center on our compression stroke and then see where the rotor actually points to, and that'll give us our number 1. Nothing at all?
It did at first, and then no.
So we had an issue with the wiring powering the ignition coil there. So I went ahead and made a fancy little jumper here. And... oh yeah. All of them?
Yeah.
Cool. Now, I'm sure you've noticed and probably been wondering, there's no carburetor on this thing. And the gentleman I talked to, the gentleman that we bought it from, could not remember whether or not it had it when he bought it back in the early 90s there, about 90, 91. And I don't think it ever did. Someone must have been working on this thing. I guess we'll probably find out why. Whew. Check this out though. Don't you just love online now? I got some battery acid on my finger. Ow.
Yeah, put it on your pants.
$92 for a brand new, probably you get what you pay for carburetor. That looks mighty fine on top of this pretty motor. We've got our fuel tank hooked up to bypass the gunk that's in the back to our original fuel pump. Our carburetor is installed. But what I want to do first, let's turn this thing over a little bit, get the rest of the sweet tea run through the system until we get some fresh. Want some sweet tea? We've got new fuel line ran here. Let's go ahead and turn this thing over a little bit and see what it do.
This is. Hey, don't ask me. You got oil everywhere.
This 6-volt system is just hilarious to me. It's so slow, but it's just constant. Let's pull those spark plugs. Let's check compression.
That works good.
That's got good compression.
Excellent.
I don't know why this thing doesn't run. It might have something to do with the lack of compression. That had 3 PSI.
Got 20?
Alright, I think I know why this thing's not starting. So I just realized, and I was not paying attention to this, this is based off the flathead platform. So here we go. This is how it works. Valves are driven here, and then on your, thankfully they're on your exhaust side. So we actually have access to them down here where we might be able to bump them around. But you see the exhaust valve drives like a flathead would have, because this is based off of the flathead with that F-head on top of it. So you can actually see, I can see the valves.
Can you see if they're moving?
Down in there, and look at all the rust down in there too. Oh.
Really?
So let's bump it. Let me go ahead and pop on these a little bit. What I'm going to do is try to pop the tops of the valves to get them to hopefully seat a little bit better. We're going to start with the intake, and then we'll see if we can figure out something for the exhaust. What I got here is this one's all the way up. Well, what we're going to try to do, because they actually are moving, they're just not seating all the way down, maybe because of trash or something. We're going to soak it down with this WD-40 and just turn it over a bit and see if we can get those. They probably just got crust where they were sitting up. So something I realized as we're going to try to get this thing to pop off is we had one completely dead spark plug. This right here, small engine J8C, this is the spark plugs that this actually calls for. It had J8Cs in it, which originally would have been J8s, but they've been updated to this part number. And this is an 841-1 J8C Champion small engine spark plug. And that's what this thing takes. So let's stick some plugs in there. And I'm also going to do something that I generally don't like to do. We're going to hit it with a little starting fluid. And the reason being, if we can get this thing to pop off, those valves that aren't seating are gonna seat because they're so stinking close to seating at this point. Why does it turn over so slow? Okay, so we definitely want this thing to run tonight because it's supposed to snow tomorrow, but we might be trying to attempt to get this thing running tomorrow. It's getting really late. It's like 30-something degrees, which again is too cold for us folk. Plus, I need to get home to the wife and kids. And we're gonna attempt it tomorrow in the snow. Well, we just pulled back up to the shop this morning. Oh, my door just about blew off. It's kind of a winter wasteland here. The wind is crazy. We got more snow at the house than here, but it might just be because all the wind on this hilltop blew everything away. Trying to do some crazy stuff here to get these exhaust valves to seat. WD-40, we've got a compression gauge fitting in here. Getting stuff some down in there. And then I bump it over until our valves are closed, or as best as they can get. And then we give it some air. See, it's trying. It's closing enough to push that cylinder over. That was some popping. It's gotta be. It wants it, dang it. Whether I wanted it to or not, making this baby run is going to involve pulling the cylinder head off. We just cannot get that compression up enough. We can't get it to pop off. No big deal. Let's pull this thing off really quick and see what we got going on. You know, this isn't exactly the way that I had planned on this going, But I've never worked on an engine quite like this, and I do enjoy and appreciate the opportunity to learn more about this motor and get to dig into the mechanicals of it. Maybe that's why that's all beat like that, so this thing could easily be torn apart. So get this. There's a bolt underneath where the carburetor goes. You can see all the rust rings. You can see all the rust, which is what had us frozen there to begin with. But I honestly think most of what we had going on is all this trash, probably just from corrosion and rust, and that intake sticking open is just holding our valves up. Look, that one's down, but just, I mean, sticking way up, not seated. This one's almost seated. But I think our main issue there is just these valves not closing. Oh my goodness. Now it is time to get this motor and that head pertified, because my goodness, it is crispy. Just a lot of rust, a lot of buildup. This is just like dust and dirt, probably from not having a carburetor, and it's just such a mess in here. Not only that, we have a ton of carbon buildup, and it's breaking off because we put that Marvel Mixture Oil in there to actually get this motor broken free where it was rusted stuck, and it's blocking those valves off. That's why our compression numbers were kind of up and down. We'd have 40 and then 20 and then 0, and it's just all over the place because it kept hanging those valves up. So I think the main thing we really need to do here, because it looks okay, it doesn't look wonderful, but it'll run. This is a tractor motor. We just got to get that compression to stay there. We need to get it all back together, and I think she'll run. But let's get all this mess cleaned up. The oil filter actually jumped ship while I was sitting here. I noticed a huge puddle underneath this thing, and these lines are just brittle as can be, and that oil filter just broke from the pressure of the weight of the oil filter not being bolted to that head. So we'll need to take care of that as well, so we can be able to have some filtration and not make a mess. Ooh, that looks raw. One thing you just want to remember when installing those head bolts back in is to put on the head bolt and water jacket sealant. And the reason we do that is because these actually bolt and are drilled straight through and threaded into the water jacket. You don't want it to leak past these head bolts, because then you'll have water leaking outside or into your oil galley. The spec is 60 or 70 foot-pounds. I am going to do 60 first, and I'm just going to top it off with 70. Well, we're almost all the way back together. The only thing we have not hooked up is we don't have the carburetor on there, we don't have our cover on, and we don't have the oil filter on. That'll allow us to see if the oil pump is pumping out of our fitting down there. But I want to go ahead, I know it's not going to have good compression, but maybe it'll have some compression, which is what we want, because that'll get us maybe running. Let's throw a compression gauge in this thing. Let's see if we got any compression now. 100 PSI. That one had 100 minus 75. I think that's all this is supposed to have is 25 PSI. I think 25 means 170 PSI. I'm telling you, I am almost positive that's what that means. It's got to be what that means. Oh, come on! This thing's gonna blow up. So it doesn't appear that the distributor's been messed with, but it's been so long that anything has been done with this that maybe someone's been toying around. It's not spot on where we feel like it should be. So we're gonna try to pull it out, move it over a notch, and see if maybe we get our timing closer. If maybe our timing's just that far off, we can get it to pop off. I think we finally came down to figure out why this thing was parked in the first place. And it would appear the cam timing is off a tooth. I don't know. So the thing is this is gear driven, I would imagine. I doubt it has a chain. It might have a nylon gear maybe that jumped a tooth. I'm going to tear the front off of the motor. I'm not sure if we'll do it in this episode, but we'll get the front of that motor torn off and see what's going on there. Let's see if we can figure out. I'm not going to let it defeat me yet. We went ahead and got this front cover pulled off. You can see our gears down there. Lower one is your crank. Right here is your cam gear, which is that nylon gear. Now, we don't see it stripped out here. I wonder if there's a possibility it's stripped out at the key there. One thing I did notice, though, is our timing marks are lined up. We were close to top dead center on the compression stroke of number 1. I don't know if you can see it. That piston is actually down just a little bit. I think I might have figured it out. So I spun it back around until we got that piston all the way back up and going back down on what looked like the compression stroke. Our mark actually lines up just where it's supposed to down here, but our cam is almost 180 out. I think it might have had a stripped out nylon cam gear. You can actually see goop and everything on that. Probably in the late 80s, early 90s when this thing got parked, they went through and replaced it and put it on the wrong stroke. Let me get these gears pulled off and let's see if we can get it back the right way and see if we got compression. There we go. Gear looks to be really good shape. I don't see anything. Maybe this could have spun, but I don't think so. I think somebody put this on there. Some things that I've seen is potential. I'm not sure. I have a feeling it probably just had this gear replaced because look how good it looks. And was installed wrong. We'll know as soon as we put it back in the right way. Oh man. Wow. Wow. It's not often they put me through the ringer like this. I did go ahead and pull the exhaust and that rocker cover there just to verify my suspicions, and sure enough our timing looks correct now. So I think we were off by a good bit there. Our compression was still low, and so I soaked the cylinders down with some Lucas to hopefully try and bump us up enough. I think our rings are just really sticky there still. You can see that Lucas dripping out. And I'm gonna try to give it another hit real quick and let's just see if we can get it to pop off. And I think if it does, it'll really seat those valves good and pop those rings back into place. Fingers crossed. Come on, lady. I'm sorry for that yell. Oh my goodness. I've been all over this thing for days. Why we just made a mess. But holy moly, it runs. All you need is some compression. I am going to pop it off one more time to verify that we have a running motor. And then that's probably going to wrap it up for this video. I think we're probably getting kind of long. We have been all over this thing. And in our next episode, we'll get this thing driving. That smoke is the fruits of our labor. Well, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. That's going to wrap it up for this video. I really hope you enjoyed the rescue of this little Willys pickup truck and getting this thing fired off. I have got to be honest, this thing has been all over, or had been way back in the day, and they clearly did some things that they shouldn't have, and that got us to where we are now. But sitting since 1991 with no carburetor clearly did some more damage that we also had to take care of by pulling that head and getting everything cleaned up. But she's a runner. It's so worth it. This is so much fun. Thank you all so much for coming along with us and supporting us. We really do appreciate all the love and support, and we cannot thank you all enough. If you haven't already and you're enjoying all this fun stuff that we do, rescuing these vehicles, reviving them, doing some restorations and rebuilds on a budget, be sure to hit the subscribe button, notification bell. And of course, you can follow us at Instagram and Facebook, Budget Builds YouTube. I'll put links down in the description to them for updates, future rebuilds, and a lot of fun posts. But that's going to wrap it up. Peace out. Catch you all on the flip side. In our next video, we'll get this thing put completely back together. We'll take it out. We'll do some trailing.